Hello, this is Little Green Ghouls, and welcome back to Goosebumps Revisited, a series where I break down a classic Goosebumps book and any episode that goes along with it. I will also be totaling up some of our Goosebumps cliches and classic moments. This week, I'm excited to visit Deep Trouble 2. I didn't know what to expect going into this book, and was pleasantly surprised. I actually found this book to be a lot more fun than the original. It moves at a quick pace with giant sea creature attacks, spear guns, and desert islands, so I can easily say I was never bored during this. It's definitely worth checking out if you've been burned by the sequels in the past. The 1997 cover is pretty straightforward, and a little dull considering the contents of this book. I personally would have gone with the giant jellyfish eating Sheena. My copy of this book is also different colors than the uploaded one on the wiki. Mine is definitely more of a hot pink and blue, but this purple and blue isn't terrible. I like the 2006 slime border color pairings too, even if it does blend into the water a little bit too much. This book was featured on a trading card book tear out, and once again, that's the only thing I found this week for merchandise. Gone are the days of Goosebumps toys galore. In the back of the book, we have a promo for the Goosebumps Monster Edition 3, featuring the Ghost Next Door, Ghost Beach, and the Barking Ghost. I personally would have swapped out the Barking Ghost with the Headless Ghost. These Monster Editions all have something special going on with them, and this one includes a ghostly screaming sound chip when you open the book. We also have a promo for Goosebumps on the Web, which featured the latest books, really gross recipes, exclusive contests, Goosebumps merchandise, interactive word games and activities, craft ideas, R.L. Stine's writing tips, and a way to start your own Goosebumps reading club. This website still works for the most part, but for me, none of the games were loading, but that just might be a flash issue or something I didn't take the time to figure out. On the next page, we have an ad for More Tales to Give You Goosebumps Special Edition 2. I'm always surprised to see these things promoted because they really weren't on my radar at all as a kid. On the very final page / back cover of this book, we have a Find the Scare sweepstakes, where you were supposed to find the phrase Secret Scare somewhere in this book to see which of the 3 prizes you won, which included 5 grand prize winners who got an all-expense-paid trip to meet R.L. Stine and have dinner with him, plus a signed copy of It Came From Ohio, 100 first-place winners who got a print of original Goosebumps cover art signed by Tim Jacobus and R.L. Stine, plus a signed copy of It Came From Ohio. The third prize included 100 second-place winners, where they got a Goosebumps CD-ROM interactive game and a Goosebumps VHS tape from Fox Home Video, plus a signed copy from It Came From Ohio. I, sadly, did not win anything in this book. Our front tag says, Something's Fishy, again, which suits a sequel well. Our back tag says, The fish are biting, everyone. And I really like this back tag, I think it's funny, but let's check out the blurb on the back. Billy Deep and his sister Sheena are spending another summer in the Caribbean on their uncle's totally cool floating lab. The weather is beautiful, and there's lots of neat places to go swimming and snorkeling. Billy and Sheena are great swimmers, but even great swimmers get into trouble, especially this year. This year, there's something really scary going on under the sea. The fish all seem to be growing, bigger and bigger, into monster-sized creatures with monster-sized appetites. Okay, let's start our summary. The book opens with our reintroduction to Billy Deep. If you don't recall, Billy's our protagonist with a heart of gold who decided saving a mermaid was more important than fame and fortune. We're also reminded of Sheena, Billy's younger sister, and Dr. George Deep, Billy's uncle who's a marine biologist, with a floating research lab known as the Cassandra. Just like in the previous book, Billy and Sheena are visiting for the summer vacation. Billy also reminds us that none of them ever told about their mermaids, so everybody's integrity is still intact. Now that the first chapter has recapped the first book, we get a chapter cliffhanger with Billy sensing danger around him as he's exploring a coral reef. He's then suddenly attacked by a giant purple octopus and spends the chapter wrestling tentacles and pulling off suction pods. At one point, the octopus squirts ink, and I spent my whole life thinking this was something only squids did. The chapter ends with Billy suddenly tickling the octopus, which is a clue that something is amiss. All of this was just a part of Billy's imagination, and he's busy tormenting Sheena. She chases him off, but he's decided he's not done bothering his sister yet. He sneaks back to the Cassandra to grab a gray vinyl pillow so he can use it as a fake shark fin to scare Sheena with. As he creeps up on Sheena, he hears her start screeching and thinks it's been a successful prank, but when he surfaces, he sees an actual shark swimming towards them. I don't know why, but I really thought this prank was going to go wrong with Dr. George shooting a harpoon gun at Billy for some reason. Sheena and Billy swim quickly towards the boat and are able to climb aboard at the last second. The shark goes full jaws though and crashes into the side of the boat, rocking it violently. Dr. George appears to see what all the ruckus is about, and is unconvinced when the kids insist this shark was unusually large, like the size of 10 sharks put together. Dr. George then decides to take them down to his boat lab to show them an unusually large fish that might be related to the situation. Billy sees a silvery fish the size of a large dog, and they're all dumbfounded on what it could possibly be. Lucky for them, one paragraph later, Dr. George finds it in one of his fish books. This mystery fish is just a minnow, but mutant-sized. All this fish talk reminds Billy that he forgot to feed his goldfish and snail, so he runs off to feed them some plankton. You'd think having a world-famous marine biologist uncle would result in a more interesting pet fish than a goldfish, but I guess not. Once Billy reaches his room, he starts screaming how there's a human head in the fishbowl and a chapter cliffhanger. This ends up being a revenge prank from Sheena, and it's just a doll's head that looks magnified under the water. Billy doesn't like this prank and overreacts just a touch, I'd say, when he grabbed her by the neck, demanding to know where his fish are. They're just in the bathroom, Billy, take a breath. He feeds the fish and the snail the plankton, and given how much time is being devoted to this plankton, I'd wager it's what's making all the marine life grow unusually large. It's now the next day, and Billy spends a few pages plotting a revenge prank that we aren't privy to knowing just yet. He and Sheena decide to go snorkeling, which is certainly a choice considering they were nearly eaten by a big-ass shark like 12 hours ago. They spend some time exploring a coral reef, and again Billy mentions watching fish eat plankton. Sheena suddenly starts swimming away from the coral reef and out to sea rapidly. Billy follows her and just assumes she's hyper-fixated on something. He notices she's swimming right towards a mysterious pink blob, and he frantically tries to get her attention, but she won't look back. It feels a bit like a Della situation, like in Camp Cold Lake. The chapter then ends with Sheena being swallowed whole by whatever this pink blob thing is supposed to be. This actually doesn't end up being any sort of fake out like I was suspecting. Sheena actually has been swallowed whole by an enormous jellyfish. Billy swims up to it and can see his sister frantically trying to get out, like the faces in the 1988's The Blob. He pulls at the jellyfish's top portion but has no luck. He still can't reach Sheena. He then has no choice but to swim inside the jellyfish to see if he can pull her out. He's lucky this giant jellyfish is basically just a plastic sack floating in the ocean and not poisonous or anything. He swims halfway into the jellyfish's core where he finds Sheena's flipper and starts yanking. Unfortunately, the flipper just pops off, and then as he's trying to pull her out by the foot, he realizes that the jellyfish is squeezing them both tighter than ever in a chapter cliffhanger. This is actually the kind of silly action I want in a story about giant sea creatures, so I'm pretty content with this book so far. Just as Billy thinks he's about to suffocate, the jellyfish spits both out Billy and Sheena. They're gasping for breath and floating confused at the surface when they see why the jellyfish just let him go. An even bigger jellyfish enters the scene, and the two giant jellyfish begin to wrestle and slap each other around. The commotion of the jellyfish battle nearly drowns the kids, but they're able to swim back to the Cassandra safely. I think I'd be content just staying on the boat at this point. They try to find Dr. George to tell him about the enormous jellyfish, but he's nowhere to be found. They start searching the boat when all of a sudden it begins to rock violently. I'm assuming due to some sort of sea creature attack. They race towards Billy's cabin, where they come face to face with a giant snail that's asking for help in a chapter cliffhanger. It turns out that the giant snail is in fact real, but it's not asking for help. It's Dr. George who's currently being smothered under the snail. They struggle to move the snail as Dr. George literally chokes on the snail slime. Together, Sheena and Billy are finally able to force it off of him, and Dr. George reveals when the boat began to shake, he fell over and the snail landed on top of him. I suppose that's a good enough excuse because I was wondering how he managed to get attacked by a slow-ass snail of all things. The boat then tips onto its side and we get some Poseidon adventure antics as Billy tries to navigate across the cabin with furniture flying at him while he tries his best not to fall into open doorways. There's a loud thumping coming from Billy's room, so he's trying to investigate it, even though you would hope Dr. George would have realized by now it's probably the mutant goldfish. Billy finally enters his room and, surprise, it's his goldfish. We then spend a few pages trying to haul these fish out of Billy's room so they can toss them overboard, since they're apparently so large they're causing the boat to tip over. If the fish are that heavy, I don't see how these three people are able to haul them off a nearly capsized boat, but they do, and the boat tips upright again. They decide to leave the giant snail alone for now and start cleaning up the boat. Billy then hears footsteps above them, and when they go to investigate, they're met by three strangers. The last set of strangers we met in their previous book were no good, so I don't have high hopes for these ones either. Stein has no shame recycling plot devices in his sequels. One of the men introduces himself as Dr. Ritter, and his two assistants Mel and Adam. They're also marine biologists, so Dr. George and Dr. Ritter bond over that for a bit. They have their own floating lab and had come to investigate when they saw that the Cassandra was about to sink. The men are about to leave without issue, but Billy starts yammering about how they've been seeing giant sea creatures. This results in Dr. Ritter being like, well, you've seen too much, and he orders his assistants to attack the trio. In the last book, the villains tossed them in a giant fish tank and threw them overboard, so I'm curious to see what sea-themed danger we'll get this time. Dr. Ritter reveals he's been doing some experiments on plankton, where he injects them with growth hormone, which results in giant sea creatures when they eat the plankton. He's altruistic though, and thinks it's a surefire way to end world hunger, but he doesn't want anybody stealing his thunder. The villains load everybody up into a motorboat and take off to an undisclosed location. They tie the trio up in a small galley, but as one of the assistants is tightening everybody's hostage ropes, Billy bites him on the arm. This results in Billy's ropes not being as tight as the rest, so he'll probably escape in the near future. Dr. George is busy complaining about how Dr. Ritter hasn't thought this giant fish plan through, because he's going to throw off the whole ecosystem, since a bigger fish will need to eat all the smaller fish to survive. Billy is now quickly free of the ropes, but as he's untying his uncle, Dr. Ritter appears and says he's had enough and he's going to throw the whole family overboard. We spend the next chapter with Dr. George trying to negotiate their freedom, and he suggests they just leave them all on an island, but it's no use, and the chapter ends with Billy getting tossed in the ocean. Except, not really, because at the last second, they're interrupted by giant seagulls. It's a little deus ex machina, like the great eagles in The Return of the King. I'm always here for giant birds though, so it doesn't bother me. The birds are causing all sorts of commotion, and Dr. George is like, see, that's why you can't feed animals magic plankton. There are unforeseen consequences. One of the seagulls pins down an assistant, and the trio uses this opportunity to untie an inflatable lifeboat to make their escape. They're almost off the boat when one of the assistants fires a spear gun at them in a chapter cliffhanger. Dr. George slumps over, and the kids are convinced their uncle just got speared, but the assistant actually missed. I was thinking Stein was going to commit and shoot the uncle, like when he ran Sarah over with a boat in Camp Cold Lake. They float away from Dr. Ritter, who is shouting at them like a cartoon villain, but they're not out of danger yet. The next few pages are spent in the inflatable lifeboat being thrashed around in the waves. At one point, Sheena is tossed overboard, but they're able to pull her back in. It jumps to night, and they're still trapped in the lifeboat, except now it's storming out. Lightning flashes across the sky, and they're all having to frantically bail out the water with their hands to stop the boat from sinking. This book goes heavy on the action. Like, it's just been one chaotic scene to the next since the first shark attack. The storm eventually stops, and Billy drifts off to sleep. When he awakens, the raft has drifted ashore. They're not sure where they are, but they're happy to be free of the ocean. They explore the island and are dismayed to discover that it's very tiny when they're able to make a full loop. There's only a few coconut trees and not much else, so Billy is now worried they're going to starve to death on this deserted island. Billy gathers sticks to start a fire because Dr. George thinks maybe somebody will spot the smoke. Meanwhile, Sheena is busy being a goddamn grizzly bear and has snatched a fish right out of the ocean with her bare hands. This causes Billy to get competitive, and he also wants to snatch a fish from the water. He ventures too deep though and gets pinched on the foot by a giant crab. He races out of the water, which results in this table-sized crab chasing after him. Dr. George tells the kids to climb trees, and they all sit up there waiting for the crab to lose interest. Dr. George thinks the crab is being so aggressive because it ate the magic plankton and now has a giant appetite. Billy and Sheena's branch starts to crack, and we end the chapter with the two kids falling from the tree to the hungry crab below. The imagery of this giant hungry crab trying to eat these kids is making me laugh, and not providing the suspense I think is intended. This chapter is a cop-out though, because Billy and Sheena land in the sand, not on the crab, because at that exact moment, it decided to go back into the ocean. Dr. George hops down and realizes the tide is coming in, which means their unsecured lifeboat has drifted out to sea. They spend the rest of the day eating coconuts and feeling defeated. At night, they hear strange squeaking, and when they go to investigate, they find two giant dolphins. These dolphins also have returned with their life raft, and are pulling it around playing with it. This family doesn't know the dangers of dolphins and strolls right up to them to get the lifeboat back. This all somehow results in them piling into the lifeboat, and a dolphin pulls them out to sea via rope, so this dolphin is like their personal ferry service. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned in a previous video that dolphins are not the nicest creatures, so this family better stay on guard. The dolphin pulls them around the ocean all through the night, and eventually stops by a boat. It's foggy now, so Billy spends a page and a half freaking out that the dolphins returned them to Dr. Ritter's boat, but actually it took them back to the Cassandra. The kids celebrate on board the boat and start demanding pancakes and waffles, but that's when Dr. Ritter appears. He no longer has his assistants, so I'm going to pretend those seagulls actually ate them. He marches the family down to the lab, where he reveals one of the side effects of the magic plankton is if a human eats it, they almost instantly turn into a fish. This is some very magic plankton. Dr. Ritter then declares he's officially over dealing with this meddling family and snatches up Billy. He leads him over to the test tubes and informs Billy he'll be drinking some plankton juice now. We spend a chapter with Dr. George pleading with Dr. Ritter, but it ends with Billy drinking the plankton juice anyways. We spend a few pages waiting for Billy to turn into a fish, but it never happens. Dr. George wrestles Dr. Ritter to the ground, and we spend a few more pages trying to tie him up, but Billy's a shitty knot tire, and Dr. Ritter escapes. Dr. Ritter has lost his mind though, and decides he'll prove the magic plankton works by drinking a bottle of it. I feel like we could already tell it works with all the giant animals, but go off, Dr. Ritter. It works this time, and we get to witness a fish transformation. But Dr. Ritter's body began to tremble. Quickly, his skin began to darken to a silvery blue-gray. Dr. Ritter's skin began to flake, then it turned scaly. It glittered in the sunlight. His body began to shrink. His clothes slid off with the slick scales. His hair fell away. His head flattened. His whole body shrank and flattened. "It's working," I gasped. "He's turned into a fish." Dr. Ritter's arms shriveled into fins. His legs melted together into a fish tail. He flopped on the deck. One flat eye stared up glassy at us as he flapped his tail. "He's a fish," Sheena cried. "I don't believe it." With one great flip of his tail, the fish plopped over the side of the deck and into the water. Ritterfish swims away, and Dr. George is like, well, that solves that problem, and the family has a good laugh. Sheena wants to know why Billy isn't a fish, and he reveals he switched out one of the plankton test tubes for iced tea. He was going to prank Sheena by chugging a fake bottle of plankton to gross her out, so when Dr. Ritter forced him to drink some plankton, he just chose his iced tea test tube. In a final page twist, Sheena starts laughing and says they must think alike because she planned the exact same prank on him. She then goes to the shelf and chugs a tube of plankton, except she ends the book making a weird face and wondering if that was the right tube after all. So that's how this one ends. A bit of a whirlwind of a book with kind of a weird ending. Deep Trouble 2 managed to snag itself a 2-parter episode, and I'm curious to see how they did with it. Our notable actor this week is Laura Vandervoot, who played Sheena, and I mostly chose her because she was in Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire, and a previous Goosebumps episode, The Haunted House Game. But let's start the episode. Well, it looks like we're opening with It's a Prank, Bro. Sheena is looking like our fashionista. We haven't had one in a while.
We're like hundreds of miles from the nearest town. There's no good radio station, no TV.
Looks like a big-ass tooth to me.
Look at it.
What is it?
I don't know.
Uh-oh, we have some lurking in this jungle. Platform sneakers and a slime trail.
Somebody's here.
More lurking. Someone needs to do a supercut of all the lurking shots in Goosebumps.
They go all the way to the door.
Well, at least he didn't taste it.
Smells like seawater.
A broom is a great choice of weapon. Billy destroys a beloved family heirloom, but doesn't use the broom to clean it up. They better stay out of the basement.
You give up too easy.
Oh, really?
This is clearly a classic mad scientist laboratory. Billy has no problem smelling mystery substances.
Smells like the slime.
Really?
These children should not be left unsupervised.
Fine, have it!
Look at this cute little fake fish.
You're the one who let go.
Maybe it deserves to be shut down. Maybe D13 is just a huge mistake.
This is some fast-acting plankton. A fish that shoots projectiles is a great addition to the story. Good thing they had this handy spike-proof blanket nearby. Who's this suspicious-looking woman?
It was Billy's idea, Uncle Harold.
Oh yeah, thanks.
And stay out of my kitchen. I'm not here to pick up after you two.
I really thought he was going to sniff the brown mystery substance.
Cake?
Just in case you were missing some lurkin'.
You know?
This mystery man just face plants it.
In the water!
Uncle Harold!
This shady hoe. Oh, so that's what he said. I had no idea, and I had the power of rewind even.
Yeah. Something about a lady in the water? Lady Milgum?
Something tells me she won't be calling the ambulance.
Janet, would you call an ambulance? And make sure that it's comfortable.
That's strange. The line's down again.
I like that they've taken it upon themselves to be search and rescue.
I'll stay with the boat while the three of you look for Lady Milton.
Dr. Ritter just left their asses.
Bye-bye.
I wish it was.
There's lurkin' on this island too. If you cut out the lurkin', it could be just one episode.
I knew that the plankton had somehow made its way into open water. Maybe while it was...
Maybe that someone's still here.
This kid just can't help himself. Straight to the nose every time. It's a Horrorland horror. Billy's dead.
Billy's watch. Oh no.
I did not see this coming. This giant lizard is great.
Hurry, get inside before that thing finds us.
Is it gone?
For now.
Ankle grab, cousin of shoulder scare.
Brother.
Sheena is a lot braver than I would be. I really like the addition of other random animals. This episode really veers off in its own direction, but I'm not complaining.
Louis, I used to work with your uncle.
They've been looking all over the place for you.
Said the only thing it would do would just make me stronger.
I bet he triggers people's trypophobia.
Dr. Deep invented this stuff. They hold him responsible.
It's a whole little cult of sea humans. This reveal and line reading is pretty amazing.
Justice, justice, justice.
And a giant spider for good measure. Boo! I wanted to see the rest of the sea mutants. Alright, let's wrap this up. I have way more clips than usual here.
Hello, Dr. Ritter. Going somewhere?
Oh, there's Janet.
He's the fish man. Half man, half fish.
Aw, it's a happy ending. Overall, I thought Deep Trouble 2 was more fun than most of the sequels end up being, and I think I actually enjoyed it more than the original, which I seem to like less than other people. I thought the various giant sea creatures were a lot of fun, especially the jellyfish scene that reminded me of the Blob, and the giant snails sliding around the capsizing boat. It just managed to hit a lot of fun beats, like getting stranded on a desert island after surviving stormy ocean waters, and a giant seagull attack. The climax is a bit of a letdown, with Dr. Fritter just going crazy suddenly and drinking the plankton, even though there's really not a strong reason for it. I also thought the ending twist with Sheena drinking some plankton by accident was convoluted and clunky. I'm gonna give this one 4 out of 5 sea snails. I may have been tempted to give it 5 stars if the ending had been better constructed. Okay, on to our totals. Deep Trouble 2 didn't have any vomit, shoulder scares, its only dreams, or any 90s moments for a change, but it did have some pranks. There were 2 pranks in Deep Trouble 2. These included a fake shark fin scare and a doll head in the fishbowl. The iced tea plankton prank almost counted, but I decided it didn't really get executed as a prank in the end. This raises our series total to 132 pranks. Deep Trouble 2 had a total of 15 chapter cliffhangers that were pretty decent for the most part. This raises our Goosebumps series total to 719. The clunky award this week has to go to chapters 13 to 14, for Billy suddenly thinks the snail is talking to him. Asshole Victim is back with Dr. Fritter, because in the climax of the story he became the victim of his own plankton creation, even if it was entirely his own choosing. This raises our Goosebumps series total to 32 Asshole Victims. Shocker ending. Our big twist to this book was when Sheena randomly chugged some plankton too. I guess to show it was also iced tea, but oops, she grabbed the wrong one. This raises our Goosebumps series total to 49. Well, that's it for Deep Trouble 2. I was surprised how much I liked this one, and how much story was jammed into what is technically the shortest book of the original 62. Next week is The Haunted School, which is one of the last ones I remember checking out from the library, but I don't really recall what it was about. Let me know in the comments what you thought of Deep Trouble 2. Did Dr. Fritter solve world hunger? Did you like the first or second book better? What's a tiny animal that you think would be terrifying if it were larger? Also, what did you think of my sea-themed horror clips this week? I kinda wish I had went with a few giant B-movie monsters, but sometimes I start gathering clips earlier in the week and then run out of time to add more. Anyways, as always, thanks again for watching and make sure you subscribe for
the pride, the love.